Okay, Audrey, this is your machine. I'm trying to show you so that you can see about how close or how low that ribber needs to be set in there for the machine to work right. And I'll back off just a little bit and try and get a profile shot for you. It is almost level with the top of the cylinder, if you can see that. And what I'm talking about is the ribber dial, this part that's moving, is controlled by this arm. Let me back off. Sorry for the shaky, I'm trying to do it myself. This arm that fits into this cylinder. You can see here this arm. And the height is adjusted by this screw. And I've got it set almost as low as it can go. You can see that gap right here. It fits snug, it slides in, but then to get it out, I just keep a handy dandy little flathead screwdriver to help lift it up when you want to take it off. And you just have to wedge it up just a hair and then it'll pull out. It kind of creates a vacuum when you put that ribber arm on. And let's see here. It's working really well. This is your 54 slot cylinder. I just took off a pair of socks off of it that I had done 2x1 ribbing. I'm not thinking everything is pretty well set. Ribber's timed really well. I'll crank this around here so you can see where the tension dial is and the yarn carrier that attaches to the machine. I tell people to start out with the bottom of this yarn carrier and this screw kind of even with the bottom of the bracket where that fits in. This one is set just a tad lower than the bracket, and it seems to be knitting really well with either cylinder that way, frontwards and backwards. And you can see, I'll crank this around so you can see how close that is to the cylinder when you're cranking that around. It's fairly close, and I think you'll be fine with it set the way it is. I don't have a washer in behind the bracket. There's one on the outside just to keep your screw tight. If you would happen to have trouble, you could find a smaller washer that would fit in the bracket inside if you needed to push this yarn carrier away from the cylinder a little bit, and just use it as a spacer to move that out. I don't think you're going to need it. It seems to be working really well just the way it is. The ribber itself, once you get it set on, you kind of have to wiggle it back and forth to get it seated down in as far as it'll go. And you'll be able to see that. You'll see a gap when you first put it on, and as you wiggle it, it'll settle in down just a hair lower, and you'll end up with something that looks like that. What else can I tell you? The tappet plate, I'll spin that around here so you can see. I might have too much light on this subject here. This silver knob is your tension dial, tension adjustment, and I've got it set pretty much all the way in. You can see that, how I've got that set. The little pointer is almost all the way into the inside of the machine. And this knob slides out to take the ribber needles out of work so that they don't operate when you crank, and then you push it back in towards the center of the machine to put it back in work. And I think that's about it. We can always adjust if you don't think this rubber dial is sitting close enough or low enough, you can crank this around. You can unloosen this screw and lower your whole tappet plate assembly with your dial. This screw is what holds that on. And you can adjust your height up and down that way also, if you think you want to put it lower. And I think everything else is good. When you get the machine, it's going to come with the handle not attached. The screw will be in the socket where the handle goes. You want to, what I normally do is get the machine set up. You'll have the base piece clamped onto whatever you're going to work on, and then this little gear ring, there's gear teeth underneath here, you can see those, goes with the gears towards the floor, and then your camshell goes next, this big piece, and then your cylinder goes in, and there's two little screws underneath the whole machine. You line up the screws with the cylinder holes that are in the base plate and tighten those in. Put your yarn carrier on, which is that little piece that's going to feed the yarn to the machine. And at that point, before I put the handle on, I move that yarn carrier so that it's sitting in the back. And then I put the handle on so that the handle is down closest to the floor. And that way, when you crank, if you'll watch, if you want to stop in the front, the handle's up. And if you want to stop with the yarn carrier in the back, the handle's down. And it balances that way so that it's not going to fall back when you stop cranking. If you don't have your handle positioned just right, you'll see that the handle will want to fall back. And that's how you drop stitches, because it pulls the yarn out of the latches. So if you do that, you will have a pretty well balanced situation so that you can stop with your yarn carrier in the back, handle's down, yarn carrier in the front, and the handle's up. And it pretty much stays right there where you leave it, or where you stop it, so that it's not going to flop back and forth on you. That's just my personal preference. And you'll see I've got the tension knob, this little guy, centered right about in the middle. You'll probably, for thinner yarns, if you tighten this knob, you'll see that that pointer is going down. That's going to make longer stitches. Is it going down or up? I guess it's going up. Okay, so if you're tightening the screw up here on top, you're making shorter stitches. If you loosen the screw, that lengthens the stitch. And I want you to start with a nice skinny sock yarn, 4-ply, Vesper, or something similar that's nice and skinny, and set that yarn carrier about like that, and I'll probably just leave it there for you, and give it a whirl. And if you have any trouble, you know how to get a hold of me. Thanks.